Dr. Alan Albright considered himself a man of unwavering principle. His life, his activism, and his entire worldview were predicated on a single crystalline truth: the purity of a European line. He was a founder and charismatic leader of the American Purity Collective, a group that operated on the polite, clean edges of the white nationalist movement. He didn't wear a hood. He wore a tweed jacket. He didn't use slurs. He used phrases like demographic integrity and ancestral authenticity. His speeches were slick, intellectualized poison, delivered to sold-out auditoriums, and racking up millions of views online. His face, sharp and pale with piercing blue eyes, was a picture of the racial superiority he preached. For his 55th birthday, his loyal, quiet wife, Carol, gifted him something he had long dismissed as pop culture nonsense: a premium genetic ancestry kit. "I know you don't believe in them, dear," she said, presenting the small, sterile box wrapped in silver paper. "But think of it. You can prove, scientifically, everything you teach. A perfect lineage. A testament to purity." Alan laughed, a dry, dismissive sound. "Carol, I don't need a mail-order swab to confirm my heritage. It's written on my face. But, very well, if it will satisfy our members, a scientific testament is a powerful tool." He took the cheek swab ritualistically, sealed the plastic tube with a flourish, and mailed it off. The return was expected in 6 weeks. 6 weeks to confirm the obvious: 100% Northwestern European. Perfect. Unblemished. He continued his work, the incident fading into the background. He was preparing for a major television interview, a coveted spot on a conservative news program, where he planned to unveil his group's new Ethno-Cultural Preservation Act. The results arrived in his email inbox on a rainy Tuesday morning, 2 days before the broadcast. Alan was in his home office, a room lined with leather-bound books on racial history and eugenics. He poured a cup of Earl Grey, sat at his mahogany desk, and clicked the link with a smug certainty. The page loaded slowly, building the tension for the grand confirmation. The screen displayed a large, stylized globe with pie charts and percentages. His breath hitched, but not in anticipation, in disbelief. The largest chunk, 72.8%, was indeed Western European, German, British, and Scandinavian. He scoffed. Predictable. But the next largest chunk was a shocking, violent yellow-green slice. It dominated the upper right quadrant of the pie. 17.5% Sub-Saharan African. Alan froze. The teacup clattered onto the desk blotter, the hot liquid soaking into the leather. Sub-Saharan African. He blinked, convinced the system had malfunctioned, that the lab had mixed his sample with control, or that the entire company was running a globalist conspiracy. He furiously refreshed the page. The number remained 17.5% Sub-Saharan African. The geographical breakdown detailed regions he had spent his career vilifying: Nigeria, Cameroon, and the Congo. He scrolled down, his fingers shaking so badly he could barely control the mouse. The remaining slices were almost as bad: 6% Sephardic Jewish, 3.7% Indigenous North American, and a scattering of Southern European. His total European ancestry was barely 78%. Alan jumped out his chair, knocking it backward with a crash. He stumbled to the bathroom, staring at his reflection. His light skin, his blue eyes, his fine, straight blondish hair. How could this be? It was a lie. A biological impossibility. He was an Albright. His family had been documented in New England since 1640. The panic was immediate, cold, and debilitating. He wasn't just not pure. He was mixed. He was, by the very metrics he had imposed on the world, impure. He was everything he told his millions of followers to fear, to despise, to expel. He was the enemy in his own skin. His first impulse was denial. He would call the company, demand a recount, threaten a lawsuit. But the reality of modern genetic testing was that it was virtually infallible, and the sheer weight of the 17.5% was damning. This wasn't a trace. This was a grandparent, maybe a great-grandparent, passing on a significant genetic inheritance. A secret. He thought of his grandfather, a stern, silent man who had moved the family from rural Maine to Boston. He remembered the cryptic family stories about a lost branch, That was never spoken of. He felt a sickening lurch of understanding. The phone rang. It was his assistant, Mike, a young, fanatical member of the collective. Dr. Albright, I just finished the final cut of the new promo video. It's fantastic. You really nailed the part about keeping the bloodline sacred. Say, did those DNA results ever come back? The members are asking. Alan stared at his own hand resting on the mahogany desk, seeing it as a corrupted, compromised piece of biology. No, Mikey managed, his voice a dry rasp. They've been delayed. Technical issues. He spent the next 24 hours in a state of terror. The knowledge was a bomb strapped to his identity. If this got out, his life, his work, his entire legacy would be annihilated. His followers would turn on him with the viciousness of true believers betrayed. The media, the opponents he had mocked and ridiculed, would have the ultimate, most beautiful weapon. He had to get ahead of it. He had to destroy the evidence. He tried to delete the email, but he couldn't. The servers held the truth. The only copy he controlled was the one in his head, and it was driving him insane. The next day, he walked into the collective's headquarters. He was late for a strategy session. The mood was electric. His team was ecstatic about the upcoming TV appearance. Dr. Albright, we got the talking points ready for the act, Mike said, beaming. We start by emphasizing the historical necessity of racial integrity, right? Alan looked at Mike, seeing not a follower, but a potential executioner. He swallowed, his throat dry. Yes, Mike, racial integrity. He could not bring himself to use the word purity anymore. It tasted like ash. He tried to go through the motions, but every word, every phrase he uttered felt like a knife twisting in his gut. When he talked about demographic threats, he felt like he was pointing the finger at himself. When he talked about ancestral inheritance, he was lying about his own. That night he couldn't sleep. He had to decide, continue to lie and risk exposure, or abandon his entire life's work. On Wednesday morning, just hours before his live national interview, he received another email. It wasn't from the DNA company. It was from a burner address. The subject line read, 17.5% is a very powerful number, Alan. Alan's blood ran cold. Someone else knew. He opened the email. It contained a screenshot of his own Ancestry results, the exact pie chart. The 17.5% slice was circled in angry red. The message beneath was simple. You have two options, Dr. Albright. Option A, show up for your interview today. Promote your Ethno-Cultural Preservation Act. And I release this publicly 30 minutes into your broadcast. Option B, you show up, you publicly denounce the American Purity Collective. Admit it's all based on fear and lies, and spend the rest of your life undoing the damage you've caused. I keep the results private, and you live with your conscience. Your choice. You have until airtime. The airtime was 10 a.m. It was 8:30 a.m. Alan sat there, paralyzed. He was trapped. If he chose option A, he was publicly destroyed and humiliated by his own DNA. If he chose option B, he destroyed his own life, his reputation, and his entire movement, but he would survive the media firestorm. He was a fraud either way. But option B offered a chance at silence. He dressed for the interview, the expensive suit feeling like a costume. He was driven to the studio. The car ride a silent, agonizing tunnel of dread. At the studio, Mike and his team met him, buzzing with excitement. Dr. Albright, you look a little pale, sir. Are you ready to crush them? Alan just nodded numbly. He was seated at the anchor desk. The lights were blinding. The camera rolled. The host, a sharp-featured woman named Veronica, smiled warmly at the camera. Welcome back. With me now is Dr. Alan Albright, founder of the American Purity Collective, here to discuss his controversial new legislation, the Ethno-Cultural Preservation Act. Dr. Albright, welcome. Alan's mouth was dry. He could feel the cold, horrifying weight of the 17.5% in his blood. He thought of the email, the silent assassin waiting to strike. He thought of his grandfather, a man who had lied for a lifetime to escape the truth. Thank you, Veronica, Alan said, his voice husky. He picked up his notes, the pages filled with a familiar, hateful rhetoric he had written 1,000 times. He looked at the first bullet point, defined the existential threat to the white majority. He put the notes down. He looked directly into the camera lens, past the lights, past the control room, and straight into the millions of homes where his face was a symbol of pure, unadulterated white identity. "Veronica," he began, his voice surprisingly steady, but hollowed out. I'm afraid I won't be discussing the Preservation Act today." The host's smile froze. The control room buzzed. Mike, watching from the green room, frowned. "Oh," Veronica prompted, leaning forward with sudden interest. "Why not, Dr. Albright? This is highly anticipated legislation." Alan took a deep, shuddering breath. He was stepping off a cliff. He knew it, and yet the truth, once acknowledged, had a terrifying gravity. "Because the act," Alan said, his voice rising with a strange, broken authority, "is based on a lie. The American Purity Collective. The entire premise of the movement is based on a fundamental biological impossibility. It is based on fear, on ignorance, and on a delusion that I, more than anyone else, am guilty of promoting." Veronica's eyes were wide. "Dr. Albright, are you saying your organization is abandoning its core principles?" "I am saying I was wrong," Alan stated. He looked down at his hands. Those hands he had just realized were genetically compromised. There is no such thing as racial purity. There are no pure bloodlines left in the human species. And the entire concept of the superior race is not just morally bankrupt. It is biologically unsupportable. It is fiction, malicious fiction. In the green room, Mike roared, "What is he doing?" "Cut his mic. Pull the plug." Veronica was scrambling to salvage the segment. "This is a stunning reversal. Dr. Albright, can you elaborate? What led to this change of heart?" Alan looked back into the camera. He saw his face, the face he had used to preach hate, now twisted with profound, agonized grief. "I took a test, Veronica," Alan said, the words barely a whisper. "A simple genetic ancestry test. And I learned the truth about my own blood. And the truth is, I'm a mutt. We are all mutts. The man who preached purity, the man who demanded separation, is genetically mixed." He reached up and took a moment to cover his eyes. When he looked back, the arrogance was gone, replaced by a devastating emptiness. "I hereby denounce the American Purity Collective," Alan declared, the words ringing with finality. "I urge every person who follows me to abandon this hateful path. It is a lie. I am a living testament to that lie." Veronica was speechless. The cameras stayed on Alan Albright, the face of white supremacy, publicly imploding on live television. The broadcast cut abruptly to a commercial for floor cleaner. Alan walked out of the studio 30 minutes later, his life in ruins. Mike and his security team were gone, likely already burning their membership cards. His phone was a dead weight in his pocket, already flooded with vitriol and threats from the very people who had once idolized him. He got into his car and drove home, the silent drive echoing the hollowness in his chest. When he walked into his office, the first thing he did was check his email. There was a new message from the burner address. The subject line, "Option B done." Alan leaned against the doorframe, a broken, defeated man. He had saved himself from public exposure, but he had lost everything else. He looked at the pie chart still open on his computer screen. The 17.5% Sub-Saharan African slice glowed like a scar. He was alive, but his life was over. He had destroyed the world he lived in. And now, he had to figure out how to live in the real one, the one where he was just another mixed man, hated by the very people he had tried to become. The ultimate irony was that the truth he discovered in a laboratory had done more damage to his movement than any enemy ever could. The great purifier had been biologically impure all.